Hello everybody. I invite you to take a seat for our next session, which is about to kick off. It's called Developing an Investment Case for Inclusive Food System Transformation. And I'd like to invite Baz Luhrmann, who's our, from Touton International, who's our moderator for this session, to kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody to this session on developing an investment case for transformation of food systems. So this session has been prepared by Touton International in collaboration with the CGI research program, Forestries and Agroforestry, and also the Mobilizing More for Climate program, which is coordinated by UCN in the Netherlands and financed by the government of the Netherlands through its Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Chopomos is a Netherlands-based NGO that seeks to make knowledge work for forest and people. But we coordinate a network of local partners, and these partners apply landscape approaches seeking development and resilience while avoiding deforestation in 8 different tropical landscapes. In this particular session, we follow up on a session that we had at the GLF investment case in Luxembourg in November 2019, which in itself was part of a larger dialogue on challenges for innovative finance for sustainable landscapes. In particular, challenges were identified to link smallholder farmers, SMEs, and communities to providers of financial services. And this process of dialogue and literature review resulted in the FAO working paper, which is presented here on the screen. While we heard of cases that had been able to overcome such challenges, we also found that few of those have been documented. So after that session, we started designing a methodology to describe, to do case studies, particularly on cases that we identified in the landscapes where we work, one in Ghana, Indonesia, and one in Uganda, all 3 related to the MOMO4C, or the Mobilizing More for Climate program. And then we did that with our partner IUC in the Netherlands as well. In addition, there's a few other cases, another 6 cases in different countries. I'll show in a moment where they are. And they focus on how different organizations or companies are addressing the barriers identified in that working paper. The studies had 3 specific objectives. One, to identify the risk perceptions of the stakeholders of the study mechanisms. Identify also the barriers they perceive, and describing the mechanisms the stakeholder put in place to reduce the risks and barriers. And that is really what we want to talk about today. What can we learn from those mechanisms already in place in the different cases? This is the map of location of some of the case studies. You can see it's in 3 different tropical continents. And in this session, we want to highlight 2 cases in particular. One in Ghana, which is being presented by Mr. Lawrence Damyak. We hope that he will be able to connect because we have some problems there, I understand. He will talk about, he's from the Forest Research Institute in Ghana, and is located in the Gwabeso-Bia landscape, the case in the western north region of Ghana. This is a landscape that's dominated by cocoa, and farmers deal with low yields, basically because they suffer from diseases and have old plantations, but also because they don't have access to finance and the technology to actually replace those plantations. Governance, deforestation, and impact of climate change are major challenges in this landscape. And the case will look at a company, the Touton company of Ghana, who provides services to smallholders to help them improve sustainability and productivity of the cocoa plantations. And Mr. Damyak will summarize some of the lessons we learned from that case. Then we travel to Indonesia, where Mr. Dia Mawesti of Chopomos Indonesia will highlight the experiences from the Simpang Dua landscape in Ketapang district, West Kalimantan in Indonesia. This is a district which this is a landscape where Daya communities dominate the population, and they cultivate local crops and rubber in mixed gardens and fallow vegetation. They have few market opportunities, little access to formal financial service, little cash income, and therefore they look at oil palm as an alternative, which then puts pressure on the forest again. We found in that landscape that there's a credit union which fills in a gap, which actually allows them to access finance for things which are not oil palm. And Mrs. Mawesti will show us how they do that and what lessons we can learn from that. Then a third case is not part of the series of these case studies, but it's a new initiative that proposes to link smallholder farmers and communities to investors. Mrs. Dia Puspitaloka, researcher of CIFOR, she will present the Green Finance for Sustainable Landscape program. This is a GLF finance program and is implemented by UNEP in partnership with CIFOR. In this diagram, we try to capture some of the elements of what we think is a system that could address the main barriers for inclusive finance for integrated landscape management. It comes from the different case studies that we've been done, not just the two that we present today. And on the right, you can see the main barriers that we have identified. On the left of these barriers are the smallholder farmers, SMEs, and communities, and they link to different actors that also relate to each other. And that we think that if those relations would work and if they collaborate, that then we can enable the farmers to overcome these main four barriers to finance and to sustainable management of their land. All cases that we studied represent part of this model. None integrates all the parts. So we're still looking for examples that work where we can see all the elements together. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. Today, we will ask whether it is actually possible to come to such a system in which actors collaborate to achieve inclusive finance for integrated landscape management. We have therefore invited Mercy Owusu-Ansah. She's the director of Chopomos in Ghana. Michael Brady, researcher and leader of the FTA flagship on sustainable value chains in finance for forest conservation and sustainable development. And Mary-Andree Lira, she will be joining us online. She's an adaptation specialist of the Impact Investor South Pole, and we ask them to discuss the lessons learned and possible next steps. Sorry, here's the pictures of them. First, however, we will listen and look at an interview that Chopomos Indonesia held with one of the beneficiaries of the support that the Semandang Jaya Credit Union provides to its members. Can we have the video, please?
This is Sefi Sohenso, a cocoa growing community in Ghana's Western North region. Its residents are confronted with several challenges in accessing finance for their farming activities. VSLA has been established as a financial resources mobilization infrastructure to help smallholder farmers with access to finance and also diversify beyond cocoa farming and become more resilient to both internal and external shocks. Deborah Asante, a cocoa farmer and a member of the VSLA, had this to say about the benefits and impacts of the VSLA.
Nana science ya bwa me se eme be ka se be trust VSL na me adwuma bi account nti me ma dwe se me dokuna adwuma na dokuna adwuma so am be fiti ase na me ni dade se nya me de be no me ma me bi die na na me kwa kwaji na ye twa susu na ye kwa bosom ba ko na me je bosia wu me to dan se nkwa na esishi se sia so ko wo so ayati adwuma fo bi wo mu a me ye dokuna o mtimi de tu de ko na so mtimi tu bi na maso na me de ko achi na no so moto se sia so na nya dwuma me ye kan kokoku ani di VSL na bo ani me fie so VSL di abo ani me se sia me ma ko school ya me ma 3 betumi to see session bi send da bia se se mi tutumi so de bi to books pen pencil any bag e de mama mo de ko school mpa boa mi aka sentimi eyi bi e de to na me ne ma ne me ko edi e wo fie se se ahụ chade first na we so se se ade BSS school ti eni me so se bi ana se se mitimi edi enye sika BSS susu ko ni eto aduro e de gumi koko so enye sika so e de fa bede form mu de mi koko asema me se se first na me bre pa eso se se na BSS susu ko na be mi ko shemuti se se sa adoni mama ankatekese na me ye na me ho kire me se se a eni ho sa ma me bi me se BSS susu ko se o mo ye o kire mu ma ye na kuron so me ti su obi enso atimi e de ne ho ahye BSS susu ko ni na timi aboa ye da masi.
Sorry, as you can see, it was not Indonesia, but Ghana. At the moment, the presenter for Ghana, we're having a problem in getting him online. So I would like to ask the tech if they could help me there. I think we should still continue with the presentation, and I'll try to highlight a few of the points that he make. Yeah. So could we still have the presentation of Lawrence Damia? And could you tell me also if Lawrence is online or not?
Yeah, I'm online, Bas.
Okay, go ahead then. Thank you, Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm online.
Yeah? Okay, yeah. So Lawrence is from the Forest Research Institute in Ghana. Yeah, and he did this case study in collaboration with Tropomos Ghana. Thank you, Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Bas. Next slide, please. Like Bas mentioned, there are a number of NGOs or companies, private companies on the landscape that we did the study, but we focused on one particular NGO, one particular company, cocoa company, that is a license buying company. And then we try to measure the information. So I'm just sharing a few highlights of the study we did with you. And like I said, this company or private company deals with smallholder cocoa farmers. And then in order to particularly get the cocoa beans to buy sustainably, the company has embarked or tried to use a number of models, both capacity building and this kind of savings and loans, that is banking models, in order to, move the smallholders along in such a way that it can be able to get this sustainable cocoa beans to buy to also sustain the activities of the company. And that is the message or the information we picked from the company. Next slide, please. Next slide, yeah. So the company used a number of models, as I have mentioned, and these models are one, the training model, that is training the cocoa farmers in a way that is technical training, in a way that they can grow their cocoa beans. They can grow their cocoa sustainably so that it also gets the beans to buy to, achieve the objectives of the company. And then apart from the training, generally, it has another model which we call the coaching model. Coaching that is selected cocoa farmers, basically mentored or coached or guided in such a way that they can grow the cocoa as a business, that is the input and output of the resources in the cocoa production. And then the third model that they use is what we call the banking model, that is organizing these cocoa farmers, smallholder cocoa farmers, in a way that they can be able to manage their finances, their finances from their cocoa, and so that so that they will be able to get some money, so some capital, some money to be able to inject into their cocoa farming. Apart from these models, this cocoa production, it has, a number of inputs, are supposed to be injected into the system, particularly these agricultural inputs, that is agrochemicals, and then other capital equipment like machinery for, spraying the trees against these pests and diseases. So some of these machinery or equipment are quite expensive to come by for one smallholder cocoa farmers to access. It's quite difficult, or to purchase. It's quite difficult. So the company has taken up some innovative way of ensuring that these inputs, are able to get to the cocoa farmers. So it has built a center, or created a center where it's able to, get these agrochemicals and some of these equipment to be put in a center that is close to these farmers. And then, so alongside, to be able to because of the dispersed nature of these farmers on the landscape, it sort of tried to introduce some intermediaries along the line such that they can help, get these inputs to get to these smallholders so that they can, on the farmlands, so that they can apply them. So these models, in addition to the access, providing access to making sure that farmers have access to the agrochemicals and inputs, farm inputs, is the innovations, the main features of this particular case. Next slide, please. Next, yeah. So participating farmers, or farmers that are engaged in these models, but I must say that these farmers are, cocoa farmers that supply or that sell their cocoa beans to this particular company, so that once you supply the cocoa beans, and they need the cocoa beans to, be sustainable, the cocoa production to be sustainable, the company also offer this type of technical training, and then savings and loans, capacity building for them. So participating farmers have mentioned in the course of our study, has mentioned at least the benefits that they perceive from these models. And then one of them is what we see as greater social cohesion, through these models, particularly the village savings and loans. Groups of farmers who supply the cocoa beans to the company are brought together, and they sit together, listen to each other's problems, and mobilize their own savings to address their social problems, including the farming problems. And then what they mention is that they see that this particular model, particularly the village savings and loans, have brought them social cohesion. It's also increased food, production, food security, in the sense that the mobilized money, which, the farmers are able to do, are able to help them diversify their cocoa production into other vegetables farming within the area. And then they are also able to get at least some additional funds, particularly the women that are engaged, to support their households in terms of food needs. Petty trading, they are able to mobilize the money to be able to do this. And that has contributed to this kind of idea of the food security. They have better access to clean water, in the sense that, before that, they have no knowledge of managing the empty containers of the chemicals, managing their farm drainage, and on these particularly swampy areas within the cocoa farm. So the knowledge, the benefits they have derived from this type of model, from these models, is one of them is the access to clean water. And then the key one is this rehabilitation of the overaged and diseased cocoa farms. Over the years, these diseased cocoa farms, there are a number of diseased cocoa farms which, farmers have to, struggling to manage. So the rehabilitation, or these models have been able to help them to rehabilitate these cocoa farms. And then the key ones, as I said, is the village savings and loans that have been able to get them additional income. And the whole process, the three models particularly, is also, from their perspective, is also helping them to reduce emissions, and it's also helping them to conserve biodiversity. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then that is not all, though it's going on very well, but they perceive some risks in participating in these models. They perceive some barriers in participating, making sure that they get the full benefit of these models. And then they offered some improvement of, the application of these models to their benefit. The risk particularly is the pest and disease, related to cocoa. You can be trained very well. You understand the lessons during the training, but the issues about the pest and disease on their cocoa farm will definitely be very difficult. Drought and this climate change issues is affecting their cocoa farms. You have all the training, but if you don't have the needed capital to be able to apply the training, buy the agrochemicals and apply them within the frequency that you have been taught, that will be a risk. The other barriers, as we said, barriers that is making it very difficult for them to get the full benefit of these models is the difficulty of making, the mandated contribution. That is particularly those groups of people who are within the village savings and loans. At least there are some mandatory contribution. It is your own little cocoa earnings that you try to save within that village savings and loans. And that is also a barrier. Timing for, these training lessons. At what time do we do the training lessons for these participating farmers? Evenings, the mornings, what time? Against their household chores and then going to their farms. The language barrier is also an issue that is also identified as a barrier, because the lessons are definitely written in English, and then they have to be taught in the local language, and crossing between the English language and then making sure that people understand in their own language is, one barrier. So they offered a number of improvements, and then one of them is like the premium, particularly those who are making sure that they participate in these models and then ensure that they produce cocoa sustainably. They are offered some markup in the sales of their cocoa beans, some additional income in the sales of their cocoa beans. So that is the improvement, number of improvement that's suggested. So last slide, please. The next slide. Next slide. Okay. So the key message or the key, take-home messages that we can get from this study, and then based on these models, is that this company, it's attempting or making attempt to ensure that cocoa is produced sustainably through these models. But as you can see, it's just one single company, and the landscape is made up of so many smallholder cocoa farmers. So it's unable to address all the needs of these participating farmers. And then apart from the participating farmers, not all the farmers within the communities that it is working, the company is working, are part of this or are able to get this program, are able to participate for a number of reasons. So it means that more is required, more support apart from this company is required to address the risks and barriers that these participating farmers have offered. So definitely other NGOs, other donors need to come in to be able to, make sure that these models that are quite good in addressing and ensuring sustainable cocoa production, at least
Lawrence,
the coverage can go up wider.
Lawrence, can you hear
in the
me?
landscape. So thanks, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Lawrence, thank you for your extensive presentation. We see here that there's a company actually addressing, going towards smallholders, but not being able to address all the needs of the smallholders, nor addressing all the smallholders. We're going to look now at a short video from Indonesia, where we see the other way around. Yes, please, the video.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Suripno. Saya selaku Ketua Kelompok Tani Sayur Gema Jaya Lestari, yang mana anggotanya sekarang ini ada 14 orang, termasuk juga bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu. Kami mempunyai gagasan seperti ini karena untuk daerah sekitar Simpang 2, Sungai Laur dan Simpang Hulu itu semuanya berasal dari Pontianak. Sedangkan di sini banyak sekali lahan tidur yang bisa dibudidayakan. Jadi kami sudah berjalan mulai dari bulan 5 kalau nggak salah. Jadi untuk awal pertama kami sudah memperoleh hasil agak lumayan, kurang lebih 27 juta. Cuma saat itu kami baru mulai. Jadi karena kebiasaan orang kampung sini itu tidak terbiasa pegang cangkul. Gitu. Jadi sekarang ini sudah mulai mereka mengerti. Nah, cuma kendalanya kemarin pada waktu kuartal yang kedua kami punya masalah dengan pendanaan, sehingga kami menghubungi Pak Hakim untuk pinjam dana, yang mana itu mau digunakan untuk pengembangan usaha. Jadi tanaman-tanaman yang kami tanam di sini adalah timun, kacang panjang, kangkung, bayam, jagung, pernah juga kemarin kacang tanah, kemudian labu perenggi. Pengaruhnya itu sangat berpengaruh bagi kami, pertama untuk permodalan. Kemudian karena selama ini kemarin kami kan waktu yang pertama kami sudah kerja sekian hari, sementara kami perlu untuk memenuhi kebutuhan hidup kami. Jadi sebagian kami untuk membayar HK kami, istilahnya kami kan kalau setiap hari setiap orang yang hadir itu kami kasih HK 70.000. Jadi makan minum tanggung bersama. Yang untuk pertama untuk bayar itu, kemudian untuk bayar alat-alat, kemudian bahan, pupuk, bibit. Kalau untuk pupuk saya kira tidak terlalu karena sudah mulai ada diajari untuk membuat pupuk organik, demikian juga dengan pesnap organik. Iya, untuk termasuk beliau Pak Hakim juga mendukung sepenuhnya. Cuma untuk kalau nggak salah baru sekali ke sini, tapi dia sudah pernah melihat ke sini apa yang kami lakukan, dan beliau juga menanyakan berapa modalnya, berapa hasilnya. Mungkin dari pihak kami juga perlu sampaikan, karena bagaimanapun badan usaha kan dari pihak saya kan jangan sampai itu terbengkelai atau kami tidak bisa untuk menyicilnya gitu.
Thank you. This is a village then where one case study was also implemented with the credit union. And Dia Mawesti, Miss Dia Mawesti from Indonesia, from Touton, Indonesia, she will talk a little bit more about the experiences she had in the case study. Dia, can I ask you to try and keep within your time limit, please?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Bas. Thank you for the opportunity. It is a pleasure for me to present for this case study and share what we learned from our works in West Kalimantan. So I will start my presentation. Okay. So when we are talking about access to finance, especially for local smallholders and MSMEs, when we're talking about the landscape in a broader sense in West Kalimantan, where there are more than 5 million people, population is more than 5 million, and 1.1 million of them are part of the credit unions. There are 39 credit unions in West Kalimantan, and 20% of the population is already a member of credit unions. So I can imagine when we're talking about the West Kalimantan landscape, credit union is a very, very important part when we're talking about financing smallholders and MSMEs. Can I see my slide, please?
We're seeing your slide. We're seeing. Hello. Sorry, we see your slide. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I couldn't see it in my screen.
Okay, it's access to finance. The first slide. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So when we are talking about the rural context of West Kalimantan, especially in our landscape in Simpang Dua, there are no formal financial institutions that are accessible because the location is quite remote. So banking, formal bank are not available in the landscape. And when we are talking about the smallholders and MSMEs, we talk about the very small scale local entrepreneurs. They have a lack of financial literacy. They have a lack of technical capacities in conducting the farming and the business, and also lack of collateral ownership status. So even if the formal banking system is available, it is challenging for them to access loans from that kind of institution. That's why credit union matters. And the second reason is in the form of cooperatives, membership-based saving and loan products that are locally based. They have credit unions in West Kalimantan have a very strong roots with the local communities, because they are growing from inside the communities and then spread out across the province. And then they also provide a locally appropriate financial solution based on the need of its member, and they can address local challenges. They know what the members need because they are very locally based, and they know what kind of financing mechanism that are appropriate for the members. And also they have outreach strategy of they have village level representatives, they have branches even in the sub-district level. Some have branches in the village level. They have also direct engagement with those members that are have savings or taking a loan from the credit unions. And also they have bundling loan products with technical assistance, especially for smallholders, because it's not only that the loan that they are giving out, but also they also give the technical assistance accompanying that type of loans. And then the other reason is that they have also support in downstream industry for the commodities. In the case that we are doing with Credit Union Mandang Jaya, they have support downstream industry for ginger products. They also have a shop where farmers and MSMEs can sell the products on, so they facilitate access to market as well. Next slide, please. So how credit union reduce risks that makes they are very accessible for smallholders and MSMEs. First is they link saving and loan products. Some types of loan requires around 10 to 30% minimum amount of saving. So if the members want to access the loan, they have to have the saving first before they can access the loan. That type that thing can help credit union reduce the risk of the loans. And then when we're talking about the form of collateral, credit union not necessarily need collateral in the form of a legal ownership document, because that's one of the challenges that the farmers and MSMEs have. They don't have very legal types of document to prove the ownership of the collateral, but credit union can accept different types of collateral that are not being a burden to those smallholders and MSMEs. And then when we conduct the interview, they said that trust is the key because the characteristic of the members, the background is way more important than the collateral in itself. Some of the loans can be provided even without collateral if they already know the good characteristic of the members, even though it's very rare, but it can be done. Like showing the trust is an important part of the loan disbursement mechanism. And they also provide loan schemes in line with the farming cycle. So they provide a loan with grace period and flexible repayment schemes that makes it easier for smallholders to repay their loan back because it is in accordance to the farming cycle. And then credit union also provide products and services to address personal emergency needs. So when they are not able to pay the loan at the moment, they have a buffer system to help them cope with the situation and it's not affecting their ability to pay the loan. The next slide, please. So when we are talking about credit union, of course, we are, like I said in the first slide, that we are talking of very small scale businesses. So how do we scale up this type of investment? What kind of main challenges are there when we're talking about scaling up such financing mechanism from credit union to the smallholders and MSMEs? One is the exclusivity, because credit union is for members only. They take savings and they disperse loan for members only. That cause that they have a very high liquidity from saving, but low loan to deposit ratio, because they can only disperse the loan to the members. And then also the regulatory and compliance burden, because it's a cooperative, it's not financial institution, the more complicated regulatory burden for them to comply with. And then we're also talking about the low financial literacy, because the local communities where they operate mostly are the rural and remote areas where financial literacy is quite low. And also, when we're talking about the very small holders and very micro enterprises, they prefer to use own capital because they are afraid they couldn't repay back the loan due to the income fluctuation. Especially for farmers, the seasonal, the price decrease, something like that is something they think might affect their ability to repay the loan, and then they don't really want it to take the risk to take the loan because they don't have a very fixed income to pay the kind of schemes. And then limited capacity and resources to have comprehensive understanding to limit the specific sectors, because the staff of credit union is limited, and they also mostly do not have background related to specific sectors, especially when we're talking about agroforestry. They don't really understand the sectors, even though they understand the business as the financial from the financial side, and also limited internal knowledge and of the internal staff of credit union about the climate change, green financing, or integrated.
Sorry, can you wind up, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. My last slide is I want to talk about. So what was to be done to overcome this kind of challenge?
Sorry, Dia.
Sorry,
we already saw your last slide. So could you please wind up?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
innovative sharing mechanism, so collaborative impact investor of local NGOs for credit guarantee, interest subsidies, technical support, and also strengthen financial literacy for smallholders and MSMEs, especially women, youth, and community group, and also strengthen internal capacity and knowledge for the staff of credit union. Also, I think one of the key thing that we must pursue to scale up such investment is multi-stakeholder approaches involving local governments, CSOs, and other local communities. Thank you, Pak Bas.
Thank you very much, Dia. So we want to hear now, we hear that there is from local initiatives addressing local farmers, local stakeholders, addressing some of the needs which cannot be addressed apparently by formal financial services. We do want to hear now proposed a new project that is led by CIFOR and UNEP, and trying to make that link between the more formal services and the local stakeholders. Sorry. Dia, can you come on, please?
Thank you very much, Bas.
Yeah. Okay. Can we have our presentation as well? Yeah.
Thank you. So good afternoon and greetings from Indonesia. I'm Dia Puspitaloka from C4ECRAF. I'm pleased to share with you an initiative to connect the community producers with sustainable financing through the Green Finance for Sustainable Landscapes, GFSL. Next. So the agricultural sectors is perceived to have a high cost and risk, so it became barriers that inhibit the forest and farm producing organizations or FPOs and SMEs to access the formal financing institutions, and the proper financings that enables them to adopt and comply with GAP, for example, or transitions towards GAP is limited. And for examples, in the palm oil sector, the smallholder can only afford the lowest possible cost of land preparations, and increasing quantity of the products usually translated into expansions instead of intensifications. And all of this comes at the expense of the environment. And investor and financing sector could actually play critical role here to support the smallholders and also to further influence the changes in their practices by requiring environmental, social component, for example, to be internalized within the business before they can obtain the loan. And here at C4ECRAF, we're led by Dr. Michael Brady, who is here with us in the panel, works in partnership with FAO Forest and Farms Facility Network and UNEP FI Good Food Finance Network to focus on SMEs and forest and farm producer organizations and FPOs in the Global South. Next. The overall goal of the initiative is to increase the financial flows towards deforestation-free commodity productions or sustainable land use, where we approach through several interventions. At C4ECRAF, we lead in enhancing the access of information and ways to access the private capitals. And this will be done through, for example, the Learning Hub, among others, approach. Next. And the proposed hubs under GFSLs will provide a practical, usable data and materials related to business investment decisions and access to finance. The platform will also function as tools to mentor, training and build the capacity of the smallholders and FPO to build business cases as well as to raise the finance. Most importantly, it will function as a platform to connect with FPOs and SMEs and then access useful information on local business opportunities. We also expect to host knowledge documents that can facilitate private sector commitments. We already did a preliminary reviews on the existing hubs and portals, and there would be standalone portals in partnerships with existing platforms, for example, to be developed. And this is to increase the private sector finance flows into FPOs and SMEs. Next. So the idea of the hub is that to respond to the challenges where the investor and financial institutions, they will struggle to identify the bankable projects, the lacking of localized contacts that could help them to understand and equip them with sufficient knowledge to comprehend about the risks and then to decide to make investments. And then there are also barriers on business development and executions. And from the SMEs and FPO sides, they are struggling to prepare proper financial projections and estimates, which then affecting in improving their project profiles to be presented to the investor. Next. And the hub will feature 3 major components. We have virtual deal room, toolkit, and also support mechanisms. In a virtual deal room, the local entrepreneur, project manager, and investor, they can register, and there will be a display, a list of curated business opportunities for the investor. There will also be a virtual data room made accessible for the investor and entrepreneur to discuss on potential partnerships. Technical, legal, and also related concern will also be addressed within the structure of the hub at the later stage. And in the toolkit, we have a training materials, toolkit. We'll also provide a detailed business case with highly localized content. And most importantly, the online tutorials and templates for the FFPO and SMEs to model their financial. In the support mechanisms, we'll have a curated list of grants and funding options and also other support mechanisms. Next. This is the examples of the interface of the hub. What's been developed now is still ongoing and will be refined with the input from the test case. As you see here, we have this virtual deal rooms, we have a toolkits, support mechanisms, and also a community for them to discuss, and also for investor to search for ready to be funded projects, and for the FFPO to access the informations on the opportunities from grants, as well as other options of financing. Next. So a test case to introduce the hub will be carried out this November, especially to introduce this to the FAO FFF networks in Kenya, Ghana, and Zambia, to particularly gain input on the designs and the structures of the hub. Most importantly, will be carried out to tailor the hubs to fit with the needs of FFPO, SMEs, as well as investor as the user of the hub. Next. Next. Finally, we expect to connect as many as possible FFPO and SMEs in the Global South to give them opportunity to test and move forward with their business idea, and also to have sufficient capital to practice their gaps, shift their current practices to be more sustainable. And we also hope for the investors to find ready to fund the project and to support the climate actions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dia. I think now we saw 3 cases. They're quite different from each other. Yeah, still they treat with the same topic, trying to get finance, or trying to get finance to farmers to actually produce, to improve their productivity, to do it in a sustainable form without deforestation, without threatening biodiversity. You know, I think the last case is quite interesting, seeing that, well, we heard in Ghana, well, we saw in the videos that local people actually are trying to do something else than the main trend in the landscape. Yeah, in Ghana, the main trend is cocoa. The lady was trying to produce keng. Yeah, and we found there that ladies in general, or women in general, wanted to use the produce of Ghana to actually do something else, to diversify their income. Yeah, in Indonesia, we saw the same thing. Yeah, even though finance comes from a different, but the difference there is that while in Ghana it was very difficult for them to do that, this lady was able to do that, but in general they were not. Yeah, in Indonesia, the credit union was actually supporting also other types of production other than oil palm, and actually now incorporated also ESG criteria in their loans assessment. We have a few minutes for questions, and we had some observations in the chat. Yeah, basically 3 observations from Africa, very interesting, saying that, wow, we like these presentations. Yeah, can we do that also in our countries? Yeah, and can we do that also for other products? Yeah, and I think that is something where maybe exactly this, what is the green finance, the hub, can actually support to scale up these different experiences also to other areas. Do we have any question here from the audience at the moment? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Yannick Ndoinyo, and I'm a student at the University of Oxford. I'm coming from Tanzania. And thank you very much for the presentations. They were very excellent. My question is, with regards to climate change, is Europe learning anything from the activities and the projects that are being done in Africa, for example? Because yesterday and today, we have been listening and watching practical examples on the ground of work that is being done successfully. And I was wondering if Europe is learning from those successful examples and bringing those lessons to communities in Europe so that there's a connection of communities in Africa or in developing world and the developed world fighting climate change together. I was wondering if you are bringing those lessons back to our communities in Europe as well.
Okay, that is a very good question. I'm not sure if that is oriented towards me or towards to me. Okay, because we really wasn't the idea that the moderator would be answering questions here. I don't know if you would like to do that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead,
Thanks,
Michael.
I guess I should introduce myself first. I'm Michael Brady. I'm a principal scientist with C4 ICRAF. DIA presented a new project that we're developing, and its purpose is to connect investors with small, medium-sized organizations in the global south that are looking for finance. And as a number of resources on this hub, the learning hub that she mentioned, some of the safeguards that we're presenting to the SMEs when they prepare business plans and develop their financing needs is to consider climate change mitigation and adaptation issues and how those will affect their business going into the future. So from that perspective, climate change is certainly now a safeguard issue in small enterprise that increasingly investors will want to know, how are you going to deal with crop production under a changing climate, things like that. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I could add on to that unless there's not a question.
Can I add something?
Sorry?
Bas?
Yes?
It's messy.
Okay, sorry.
I was looking around. I am not an European, but the few things that I have seen in our landscape is what I want to share. So currently in the cocoa landscape, there are a lot of activities and actions on the ground, and these are being done by both the local people and then in partnership with people from the north. And so the case you saw about Touton, for example, is something that is being done because a buying company is ready to support farmers so that they can be able to get finance to address issues of climate change. So those are some of the good examples that we are seeing. In Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, for example, there is the Cocoa Forest Initiative, where producer and consuming countries are talking together to find out how we can address the climate change issues, making sure that producer countries are producing from deforestation-free areas, and at the same time, consuming countries are also sourcing from deforestation-free areas. So there is a joint action on the ground. Issues about finances and all these are things that are being discussed, how producer countries, especially smallholders, can have access to finance, are things that are being discussed. What kind of models should be put in place? And a lot of these projects are being financed from, from the north. So I see that by and large, there is that shared concern from both the producer and then the consumer countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I've heard some people even comment that the way finance at the moment is working, it's almost like a new form of colonialism, in the sense that in the north they say, okay, you want finance, we have a lot of money, but use it for this. Yeah, and I wonder if also in this question maybe, yeah, that what we're trying to do also from the case studies is say, well, there are a lot of good ideas there, but they need a different form of finance. Maybe they don't need so much finance, but they need to be able to say more about what the finance is used for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder, we have Marie Andre, if she's online at the moment. She's also a panel member, and I feel that the questions actually are leading into the panel. So I would like to ask Mary Lee if she has a comment. She is an adaptation specialist for fund manager, an impact investor which also manages funds, South Pole. Mary Andre, would you like to answer this particular question? To bring those experience to the South? I understand you actually working in some of that, is it?
Yes, thank you, Bas. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm Marie Andre Lire from the Landscape Resilience Fund, LRF in short, which is managed by South Pole and in collaboration with the Worldwide Fund for Nature, also known as WWF, have developed the LRF, an international nonprofit fund which aims to leverage financial streams into focused landscape-based adaptation and resilience project. And I think to respond to your question, and it's what resonates for me the most from these case studies that have been presented, is that these local partnerships that are needed to understand the local needs, and rather than we saying we have the money and we want to invest in this and that, we want to partner with these local institutions in Indonesia, in Ghana, so we can understand the needs that are there, and then we can actually make an impactful, we can give impact at the local level. And then, as you say, for example, the women in Ghana have identified they need to diversify their income, which is key element to increase resilience in these landscapes. So yeah, this is why we need to be on the ground with the partners to strengthen these local multi-stakeholder platforms. I will stay here. I see the structure of the LRF is on the board, but I'll leave it to you, Bas, to tell us what's next steps.
Yeah, no,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marie-Andre. We're still actually looking at some questions here. There's one in the audience. We have also one in the chat. There's a very short one, I think. They're asking whether the hub will also be available in French. Mm. Yeah, they're from Africa as well. Yes, is that the yes answer?
We haven't even addressed that, but that's a good question. Thank you.
He's Canadian, so he should be able to do that. Okay, your question, please.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this interesting case studies. My name is Thorsten Klimpel. I work for the Tropical Forest Foundation, Aurverde. And I saw in all of the presentation and in the final one as well, the word multi-actor partnerships. And I would like to know if it's part of your project to support these platforms, or you use existing multi-actor partnership where you're working with. And the other question is about the part of insurance. Does it play a role, the risk reduction due to insurance systems, or it's always about loans for production? Thank you.
Yeah. I wonder, Dia Mawestri from Indonesia, if you would be able to respond to that question, because I understand at least that last part on the insurances is also part of the credit union, is it? Yeah.
Yes, so actually that kind of instrument, insurance, is because credit unions are cooperatives and they have a restriction in providing such schemes. They have to be partnered with other entities, other institutions to provide such kind of insurance schemes. But I think it is still quite challenging given that the insurance needs some premium and it might not be affordable for all the members, that they have to pay some premiums for additional advantages of an insurance. So I think one of the key strategies to reduce the risk is by trying to partner with impact investor or NGOs to provide some kind of credit guarantee schemes that is more feasible options for credit union in that sense.
And Lawrence, I understood from Ghana that in the village saving and loans associations, they also have they have actually something incorporated in terms of insurance. Is that correct, Lawrence?
Yeah, I think not the issue of insurance, but what I see, what I see with particularly these private companies that are working, these are not government bodies, and basically you try to, the investment you make in this investing in these smallholders, you try to get the money back. In the case of Touton, you must be be selling your cocoa beans. There are other buyers within the landscape. You must be selling your cocoa beans to be able to benefit from whatever training or whatever small capacity they are building. So, and I think Touton is not the only case. There are other partners within, other NGOs within the area who has, because they are not government entities. These are private companies that source their money, and the money must be returned. The money, they must get their money back. Yes. So, and I think that basically not a loan, as the gentleman is seeking to find out, but it is an investment which has to get a return. But the form in which it is done to get the return back is one example, like the Touton. You sell your cocoa beans. If you don't sell your cocoa beans to me, you no more become my farmer.
Yeah,
so,
but
so it's
Lawrence,
not a loan.
Lawrence, sorry.
Yeah.
Could interrupt a moment? Sorry for the interruption. I understand, and I saw something in other schemes as well, that in the VSLOs, the Village Saving and Loans associations, that they actually, as a member, you have to put in an amount, and that amount is then being used that in case you're sick, that you can actually get some money to cover your expenses while you're sick, as a type of health insurance.
Yes.
That is. And then I think the other part of the question was whether we actually, the cases are cases that we work with, or whether we plan to work with. Well, really these cases we selected from in the landscapes. We first looked at the financial flows in the landscapes and then identified these cases as flows with a potential positive influence on the landscape, both environmental and socially. And what we wanted to do is actually learn more about these cases so that we could, in our own programs, apply or look at, well, where should we focus on? So in the case of Ghana, for example, we selected, and you would know better, Mercy, the Village Saving and Loans associations, and what else did you mentioned something today as well? The business assistance centers, to strengthen them so that they can support financial literacy, that they can actually address some of the needs that were identified in the case study. I'm not sure, Dia, if you had something similar in Indonesia as well, no? In the program that we're running, what did you particularly learn from this case study that you're going to implement?
I think the main key that we take from these case studies is when we want to support what is locally available innovative financing schemes, and we're trying to scale it up but the challenges is there. So what we are trying to do is like to have the businesses in the landscape to be scaled up first, so they are feasible to access this kind of financing. And then when we can do that, we are able to scale those businesses. We can also try to provide a strong technical assistance to make sure that the scaling up is not only in the sense of providing loans, but also to have more insights on how to conduct business that are climate resilient, and also affecting positively to the social and environment, and also economic for the smallholders and MSMEs.
Yeah. Marie-André, I'm going to actually change a little bit what we discussed before in the session, because you've seen now the presentation, the three presentations, yeah, and you're an impact investor. If you look at the hub that is being proposed, would you say, okay, yes, if that hub exists there, then that would help us as impact investors to connect to a case like the credit union in Indonesia, or the farmers associations in Ghana, which are not necessarily linked to the company? What do you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I see this hub as a very interesting platform to connect and to network with other investors as well, with other credit unions in this case, to have this local financial institutions. Well, not the case in credit unions as Dia mentioned, but having these two different local institutions. Also, what I see is a strong ally, because at the LRF we have a funding window that provides technical assistance for when an SME is not investment ready. We can provide the TA necessary for them to be able to, and the hub, from what I could see, also provides mentoring and training and capacity building. So we could build we can join forces. So the hub has the partners that provide this, and then we provide the financial means. But also what I see super interesting is to have the practical and usable data materials. We're really looking forward to have that available, because then you're
working with a lot of sorry, I lost something there at the back. Yeah. Could I ask you, you're working with a lot of communities and smallholders, and how would you look at the hub? Is it something that you say, well, this is exactly what is missing, that we need to get more finance to the communities and to the farmers? And then what kind of finance would you expect to get from there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I look at it as something that is very interesting, and then an opportunity for the smallholder farmers, because of all the tools that it comes with, providing both technical guidance and then also providing capacity. I think the most interesting part is the fact that it's able to link smallholders to potential investors. And that is what we are actually aspiring to get to. So you realize that in the business cases that we have developed under the Momo for C, for example, one of the key things is to have potential investors having access to these business cases, and then finding interest, and then providing the necessary support that the businesses need. So I think it's a very important hub that we need to collaborate on, see how it can be applied at the landscape level, and then see how we can develop the business cases of these smallholder farmers.
Well, from your experience, because I understand you had a call for business cases, mm-hmm. and there were like, what, 100, 140?
About 150 calls. People, yeah. Yes, yeah. Applied.
A lot of them were not really like business cases yet. So
just ideas.
But what was the size of the fund that they would be looking for?
So, as you rightly said, many of them are just business ideas. So it's about funding to help them to develop their capacities and then help them to, go through an incubation phase and then trying to now develop it into businesses. And then after that, probably how they can be linked to market. And that is one of the things I found interesting with the Indonesia case. If I heard Dia right, she said that the credit union also gives access to members to have a market, which is not the case in Ghana. So if it is cocoa, then of course you have market. But if you are diversifying, then there are issues with markets. So that is the kind of finance or the kind of support that will be needed by these new ideas that are coming, and then those that have developed further than just an idea.
And you think, Michael, that you can...
Well, this is all very positive, so I'm pleased. This project has just started, and I mean, we have a strong foundation through mainly in the global south, working with the Forest and Farm Facility program and its network of over, I think, 400 SMEs and producer organizations throughout Africa and Asia. And on the other side, our partner, UNEP Finance Initiative, they're bringing in the investment community, essentially from the global north. I guess what a challenge that I see is how we can engage with the financial institutions in the global south, the national banks, who do have a presence at the rural frontier areas. I'm thinking in Indonesia, where many national banks have branches across the country. So we've got a challenge to try and link the international finance community with national, and then through the hub, link them to the investees looking for finance. And obviously, getting down to the household level would certainly be a challenge for an international investor. So there are some limitations.
Yeah, because what we heard
through aggregation.
Yeah, what we heard from the credit union really was that they need locally adapted financial products. Yeah, that the bank, for example, they cannot go to the bank because they don't offer that. How would you incorporate that? And Marie-André, what would you feel about that you actually invest in an organization that then uses financial products which normally you might not dare to do because it's a different type of risk management.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sorry, if the hub says it wants to link to local banks, and I'm saying, okay, but there's also other organizations that provide finance to farmers because the banks cannot really give the products sufficiently adapted to local circumstances. For example, you plant coffee, it takes 5 years before you can harvest, so you have to bridge that. So you need different type of financial products, which usually normal banks do not give. So would you invest in an organization which is prepared to change the normal financial products and run therefore also more risks?
I think on the one side, if you refer, for example, local financial institutions, we are yet not looking at that at the fund. We're not doing right now that at the fund, but we've considered that could be an option because local financial institutions can also take this risk. But otherwise, if we refer directly to the SME, I guess this is why we are impact investors and we want to create this impact, and we would then assume the risk if it's in the longer term a loan that needs to be repaid in more than 5 years, to say. I don't know if this really responds to your question, but I would probably give it also to my colleagues there on the ground to see.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at the time as well. So I would like to actually ask we've made some changes in the program, and there was supposed to be a poll earlier. I would like to skip that poll from the technicians, if they can hear that, and go to the second poll, for the word cloud. Can we do that? Yeah, and then for the poll, you need to go to slido.com. Enter the event code, which is numeral GLF Climate, and then select the room called Tropenbos. And then answer the question. And this is not this one, it's the next one, please. Could you show the next one? Oh no, it is this one. I can't read it from here, sorry. I'm getting old. So it reads, what should be the priority for a mechanism that allows for inclusive finance for the transformation for sustainable integrated landscape management in the tropics? In one word, what do you think would really allow for inclusive finance for sustainable landscapes? Is it something that you heard today? Is it something maybe that you had in mind already but you weren't able to bring up in the chat? Okay, we're starting to get some response. And I like then to look, the panel members also to look at that, Michael Murphy and Marianne Drie. And we'd like to start with you, Michael. If you look at the words coming up, is there one of them, not particularly this one necessarily, is there one of them that you say, well, this draws my attention and we actually are able to solve that?
Well, I obviously like the word in the largest text, locally led. Just going back to our earlier discussion about international investment versus national financial institutions. It's the national institutions that are going to influence the financial infrastructure that's where improvements are needed. And so locally led, will influence things like collateral, definitions of collateral, programs for collateral registries, for credit registries. Those are all local financial infrastructure that's really needed to expand access to finance. So locally led would be my...
And you're going to solve that?
Well, through the hub, as I mentioned, we intend to try and link the international investment community with national communities with a long-term view of influencing the financial, the financial infrastructure that needs improvement.
And
so I think next to the locally led is inclusive. That is a very important word. So just taking it from the first question, whether people from the north are learning from what is happening in the south, then the issue of inclusive is very, very important. So it's something that we do it together. Everybody involved, everybody is making decisions. Everybody concerns are heard, and then we go to the process together. So yes, locally led.
But then you, as Tropenbos Ghana, what do you do exactly to ensure inclusiveness?
A lot of things. So we usually will engage. We'll usually sell ideas, but we really allow communities to lead the process and sometimes driving it towards where they really want to. So we will generate some evidence first, and then based on the ideas that we have generated, we bring it back to them to check whether that was what they were saying. They confirm, and then we continue from there.
Yeah, and I think the business calls that you did is also a form of becoming inclusive. No?
Yeah.
Those ideas come from the
So,
field.
of course. So
Yeah,
we provided capacity guidance, but the business were developed by communities.
And Marianne, before you choose your word, I was just wondering, because like in a landscape, like in Ghana, then you get maybe requests for $5,000, $10,000, yeah, really small amounts. What is your minimum ticket size to invest in something?
That is actually a really good question. Since we're looking at small and medium enterprises, the ticket size starts from 500,000 until $2 million. The other one we can look at is, for example, the technical assistance for preparation of investment readiness. But otherwise, and possibly at the opportunity of grants, but mostly the ticket size starts from 500,000.
But doesn't that really conflict a little bit with that locally led, inclusive? How is that? How do you match that? Because we hear now that if you hear locally led, then it's really small. You can aggregate, of course. Are you actually able to set out that amount of money for locally led initiatives?
Yes, but in this case, I would add there the component that we have of partnering with local stakeholders. So looking at more as a landscape approach and including the local stakeholders, and through these local stakeholders then go to these smaller businesses.
And that then would be something where you, Michael?
Yeah, just to add another term important in my view is diversity, in the sense that not every SME producer organization is looking for a vanilla loan. So things like trade finance, insurance, short or long-term loans, supply chain financing. So there really needs to be many options depending on the needs and the situation. But something like supply chain finance, for commodities is probably very, very appropriate.
But wouldn't you need then something like a local form of trust fund there where an investor like South Pole could put its money, and then where, based on the needs in the landscape, the smaller loans are being given from, or? Maybe Marianne can answer that.
Yes, probably I would go back to the option of having local financial institutions or credit unions where we can partner up with them, and then they would be able to provide these smaller loans to the businesses. This could be definitely an option, and I think is the most viable option.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I should do that, but there's somebody in the room here which also, I think, is working a little bit like that. I don't know if you want to say something about that, Edith? Or I'm putting you on the spot there.
I'm happy to comment on it, maybe in the closing plenary.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we hear more about that later on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. You didn't choose yet a word, Marianne. Did you choose one already, or?
I am actually having a little bit of trouble to see the words. I can see locally led adaptation locally led, and then yeah. I couldn't see the other ones. They're too small on my screen.
Okay, so
can you put them on?
Can we have?
But probably I would think as well, locally led is one of the most important ones. This sort of landscape approach that plays an important role in ensuring sustainable investments. Bringing in these locally led businesses and organizations and initiatives that are already present in the area in order to increase the adoption and to strengthen and scale up existing working models. But I also saw, I think, de-risking. So it could be An option comes to my head, blended finance, for example, which allows the de-risking of the projects that is very much needed as it addresses the barriers for smallholders and SMEs.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary and Julie. I think we're getting towards the end, so I want to thank everybody for being present, to participate also. Thank you very much, the panel members and the presenters today. I just want to make an observation that this is part again of a process like we did 2 years ago. Yeah, and we hope that we can bring the case studies together and also your observations, your comments during the panel discussion. Yeah, and there will be coming out a paper later on in this stage, and we hope to learn from this, and we also hope to be able to keep in touch, because I think, yeah, especially between the presenters and the panel members, I think there is great potential to start working together. Yeah, maybe through this hub, maybe more directly. Yeah, but I think there's great potential. Thank you very much. Yeah.